We are now recording, and thank you all for being here this evening. This is the Place-Led Development Working Group Deep Dive, #1, featuring Angers Waterfront in Angers, France, presented by Marika Frenette. And I'm just going to do a quick little agenda first for the group. I'm welcoming you guys here today. My name is Anna Bradley. I am at Placemaking Europe. I do a couple of different projects researching placemaking across context, specifically looking in Vienna and Oslo, and doing some other really fun research work about public space and physical activity. And I also work at Steepo. And I will hand the floor over now to Hans to say a little brief hello and tell what the Place-Led Development Working Group is. And then we'll hear from Clémentine Robert all about what is place-led development. And the main event of the evening, we'll be hearing from Marika Frenette all about the Angers waterfront. So Hans, I'll pass the floor over to you.
Thank you, Anna. Well, good evening, everybody, and great you all join for this first deep dive that we're doing. The Place-Led Development Working Group. As with a lot of working groups, I think we started out of a couple of frustrations, personal frustrations, and trying to overcome those and learn from those. I think a lot of us in Placemaking Europe have had the experience that we you're invited by a project team that is working on area development and has made a lot of plans for the area and a lot of designs already. And then at the end of the process, somebody in the group thinks, but we actually wanted the area to be vibrant. Let's do some placemaking. And by that time, there's so many mistakes made already in the whole setup of the public space and the engagement of the community, and you could have done so much better. Or I think another frustration that a lot of us in Placemaking Europe have is that we are invited to help activate a place with placemaking in the beginning. And then once it's brought to life, then the real estate developers come in and say, okay, thank you very much. We'll now do the real development. And you would actually like those great places that we help to create to become more permanent part of the development. So I think place-led development is really about combining the values of placemaking, the idea of community-based development with real estate development and area development. And well, it also has a lot of positive aims, because in this working group, we hope to bring together the real estate developers who are very open to this, and luckily more and more are open to this, and the municipalities who set up the frameworks, and the placemaking initiatives on the ground who, in their turn, also have to get used to the language of the real estate world, maybe. So it's a mix of people that we need here. And we're super happy to have this first deep dive with Marika Frenette and the case of Angers, because we see from the best practices in Europe, which we'd like to showcase in this series of deep dives. We see that it takes a lot of devotion, a long time, and very often you start very small, but you can end very big if you manage to hit the right nerve to tap into the energy of the city. And I think that's what Marika has really accomplished. So we're really looking forward to her story. But I think we're first going to Clémentine to do a brief introduction. Yes. And of course, let me say that you're all welcome to join the Place-Led Development Working Group. Besides these open for the public deep dives, we also have closed door kitchen table sessions where we can share our beginning projects and help each other out. So please look at the website for joining the Place-Led Development Working Group.
Thank you, Hans, for the introduction. So I'm Clémentine. I've been part of a Steepo team at the beginning of 2020 and involved in the Place-Led Development Working Group since. So before we start with the case of Angers, I would like to introduce you a little bit more further the concept, but also the process of place-led development. As most of you may know already about placemaking, it's about turning public space into great and vibrant places where people feel at home, feel great. Here we, as public space has a lot of democratic stakes, it belongs to everyone. We believe that it should be also built by everyone, and also at a much larger scale, that is the city and area development. That's why here we talk about place-led development. What it actually is that it's actually placemaking within area development. So it's kind of upscaling placemaking to the city scale, more or less. And right now, what it's done is that area development is mostly approached by building the private blocks, and what is left is the public space, whereas it should be the other way around, because public space is as the heart of a sustainable city. So we should actually rethink our processes this way. And it's actually not only about public space, but also about public goods. So also the natural environment that composes a city. We can also resume that placemaking is building multiple values and capital. It's building physical capital with the different places, human scale streets that we are building, is building green capital with the green environment, the landscape, or the waterfronts, for instance. Is also contributing to the social capital, the social life, the networks, the vibrancy of the places. Cultural capital with public art, with the sense of an identity, of history there as well. And of course, it's also bringing economic value through property value that can increase. It can also contribute to the local economy. So it's building a lot of capital. But so this is easy to see, but what we want also to demonstrate through place-led development is that this value is created by everyone and is also benefiting everyone. And here, going into this larger scale of the city, of area development, we believe that each stakeholder should be included, all of them, and all of them can be placemakers. And at the scale of the city, we could call them place-led developers, for instance. So this is more a work in progress. So there are different ways of explaining it, but this is one way. And here, what you see in the middle of the center is all people that can contribute to placemaking. And the little circles are the different actors as a synthesis that can be also place-led developers. So it's a very common process, an inclusive process. That's what I mean. And here, one of the stakes of place-led development is to find new business models, new inclusive development processes, and new governance models for our projects to finally develop projects that are that have a long-lasting impact and positive and sustainable impact on the long term. So including from the very beginning all the stakeholders and the community and the initiators, the kind of also more bottom-up placemakers in the process. And this according to the three dimensions of a great place as well: the hardware, the built environment, the software, the different uses, and the orgware, the management and the collaboration on the long term. And just we can go to the last slide. And so in the context also of this case that is going to be introduced by Marika, is that place-led development is about building projects that are relevant, adapted, and meaningful to specific territories in the communities, and highlighting their particular identity and resources. So it's about thinking all together projects that have a positive impact and sustainable impact on the long term, and enhancing what's already there, kind of also. And in the light of this small introduction, I leave the floor to Marika Frenette, who is also in Nantes as myself. So that's for you, Marika. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Clémentine, for the introduction. So Clémentine is living in Nantes like me, but I'm from Canada, from Quebec City. I was born there and I studied architecture there. So hello to all the Canadians that are there. And I'm also an urban planner, designer, and I've been working in that field for many years until I discovered, before placemaking, I discovered community planning, which coming from the west part of state. That was quite old, 40 years. And I just discovered a totally new way to plan the city, coming from people towards the territory and not the other way. So that will be a good example, I think, a good study case. I love a lot of things. Not everything had worked. So that would be interesting to share with you things that had worked, things were difficult, and things that are still work in progress at the moment. So the title is very deep, you're going to see later on, because usually public space and doing placemaking is about something that is hard. It's a land, it's a piece of the city. And here, I would say that one of the most exciting places was the water itself, more than the riverfront, because at first the riverfront was the subject, and you're going to see what happened during the process. So just a short thing, WIGWAM is working basically on climate issues, and we are working both on buildings, neighborhood, cities, and also human organizations, not only citizens and stakeholders, but also trying to be besides all the clients, private and public, to help them change deeply at the moment with the climate issues. And it's very exciting because we're coming from the visible part and going to the invisible part. And it's really exciting also to work in the city. I would say in a closed room of a city politicians, and trying to make them move in their head also for those projects that are so different. So here you can see where is Angers. It's not that far from Nantes. It's a city of 150,000 people, so it's smaller than Nantes. And it's about 1.5 hours from Paris, which is really close, means by the train. More and more Parisian with the COVID now wants to get out of big cities. So, and they start to live in place like Angers because it's not that far from Paris. So there are big issues at the moment with that. So Angers is a very old city, like a lot of European cities. And it's, of course, was beside a river, Maine, because a river was the place where cities were born. And you have a lot of rivers, 3 main rivers that goes in the Maine. And you have the big river La Loire that is just beside. So that was really a strategic place for market of lots of goods. And so that was really an important city in the west part of France for more than 2,000 years. So the city was built, of course, on bridge of water. And it's really important because a lot of European cities and North American cities were besides water. And then after they turned their back of the water because of the train, because of cars, because of whatever reason. And that's a main issue for a lot of European and North American and international, I guess, cities to recover their identity with the fact that they were born because of the water. That was the reason why the city was born. So there's a lot of iconography we can see on that. That was really a landscape of having the river in the city. That was in the middle of 19th century, and they replaced the walls, the medieval walls, by boulevard, main boulevard, but we still see the city as it was in the middle of 19th century, and then after it changed a lot, of course. So there was a lot of activities, fish, like in a lot of riverfront, even people that were swimming. And then suddenly we had the cars and the highway. And then the highway from Nantes to Paris just go through the city and then cut absolutely, you imagine, the city from the river on the north side. So I remember when I just arrived in Nantes 24 years ago that we were going in Paris, and I didn't even stop in Angers. Angers was just the place where highway go from 130 to 110 kilometers. And then so it was quite speed. So people didn't really go on the river except for the south riverfront. So that was a big issue. And about 10 years ago, the previous mayor just had the idea, or just think because citizens were asking, saying that we should get rid of that highway and just get it out of the city. And then by getting out of the city, then we should have no more road and then everything open to the riverfront. But that cost enormously amount of money. So they were able to have the highway out of the city, but they couldn't get rid of all that roads because putting them under, the level like we see here on the pictures cost a lot. So there was just a little part, but at first they wanted to cover it for all the way long of 10 kilometers, but that was not possible. So there was a big project. Here you have the perimeters, a big project called Cœur de Maine, which means Maine, the river, and the heart of Maine, of the river. And it was a big project, very important to recover, the city and the identity of that river. So it was for many years. Of course, it's still in the middle of the program, even if there's a lot of things that are done. And all of this were not done with people. Mainly, it was done like usual way. Okay, so you can see here that they were able to enlarge the place for pedestrian. Before it was narrow. They had here, it's this kind of a city park, and they kind of having, so the landscape architects and the urban planner were doing, their regular job. And the city just called us and saying, well, we don't exactly know what to do here. So that's exactly what Hans was saying. So we'll talk about it later on. And also they have that big new neighborhood beside the river. I can show you, it was, here. It's Saint-Serge, here. Yeah, so in that place here, okay, it's a new development, really new one. So, and they say again, well, we have a new skate park here and we have a park, so we don't know exactly. So this is the road. Now it's boulevard. Before it was a highway. So the story just began with that first point. Means that they used to have an exhibition. It's kind of the old way to do with people. You can see nobody looking at it. And they had that exhibition to say to people, okay, this is what we are going to do. So, okay, if you have something to say, just tell us. So that was the way they started, because that's the way people used to do. And first they asked us, could you ask to students of the university that was beside if they want to think with us? So we start really, really small. It was in 2016. It was a big hit with the students. We had a lot of fun for just a lunchtime that was just for 3 hours. And it brought a lot of ideas that were really good, and they were not in the exhibition. Second thing, they asked, okay, what can we do here? Because we have just planned this, but we don't know exactly what could going on there. So the project was finished, it was like this. So at first I hesitated. I said, you know, if I go exactly what Hans said, if we just go for one turn, just go for 2 evenings with citizens, a lot of people are going to be frustrated. And, you know, I really hesitate. And I said, usually I don't work this way. And finally, I did it. And of course, it was complicated because people didn't really want to talk about this. They want to talk about all the riverfront. They had some frustrations. They want to be here about a lot of things about ecology. So it was kind of full of stress. But the main director, Olivier Reger, might be here, was saying, I think I understand what's going on here. And I think I understand that we might do something better for the rest. So here you see all the riverfront planning that was done up riverfront. And then after, you're going to see that there's a lot of work to do on the lower level of riverfront. So this is all finished now. It's a SketchUp, of course, but it's all finished. You're going to see some pictures after. So that was the night we just worked with people. So at the end of that first process, that was kind of really frustrating. The project leader said, I think I understand what it's all about, placemaking, community planning. So we're going to do something different for the lower level of riverfront. So that started really in the middle of 2016. And he said, okay, let's do something for 2 evenings at the beginning of the process. And believe me, it stays for 3 years. So like Hans said, you never know where it can go if people feel that there's something there. It's really important. They never asked me to work on this for 3 years. They asked me for kind of 3 evenings. So one of the things that was important and why I think usually, like Hans said, that placemakers and we don't know exactly is because we don't ask why we want to do that. And that's really important. It's about the Simon Sinek. You say what? Okay, we want to do riverfront planning. And then how? We are with an urban planner and then with an architect and landscape architect and a bit with citizens. Why? And nobody answered that question because it's so deep that everybody thinks it's obvious, but finally it is not. So really think about that in a project. Ask often why we are doing what we're doing now. What's the deep reason we are doing it? And another thing that was important is I'm really working with some method called creative problem solving from Buffalo University. And one of the things we are working with creativity is saying that the problem that you put at the beginning is not the good problem, but it's just a start level, a start point. And you can say that a problem, like we want to do the riverfront planning with citizens, it's kind of in the head of the clients, it's kind of something so clean, you know, like this is our needs, our problem, and our vision. Can you do it? And finally, it's not that at all. It's, of course, much more complicated, and you don't see inside exactly what is complicated. So you have to unfold it, okay, from piece to piece slightly to discover what is inside. And what is inside, it's going to be the shared problem. And so the first lessons learned, it's never start with those projects by looking for a shared vision or ideas. No, look for the shared problem. Take time with it. Be creative by looking for the problem, the shared problem, the real one, and not for shared vision and shared ideas. So another thing that was important is dismantling, because you've seen that it was a kind of a usual process. It was not a bad process. It's a process that works everywhere. It's just that was not the process that could fit if you really want to integrate stakeholders. So there was a lot of things. So this is coming from the place-led development group. So you have kind of 5 different steps. And the first step is seeing who is there to work on. And here you have the architect from the back. And you have not exactly usual citizens, because the city didn't want that the citizens come like individuals. They just wanted, they kind of being scared. So they said, okay, for us, it's okay if there are more than 30 associations of different types. mainly it were associations that use the river. So the problem is the architect had done already a framework. It was not his fault. They asked them, the city asked them to do a framework. So look at that picture. You know, the architect's start is there, and behind him, there's already the framework of the planning that will be done. It's just a framework. It's not a master plan, but still people just look at it and see something. So that's the second lesson learned. Never show anything, but anything, even if you have some ideas or the urban planners had to work to verify things, don't show anything, because if you show, people start to be agree or disagree. So I would say that it's kind of starting with a framework plan, and after going to see people, they're going to have a lot of disagree and not comparison. And if you start with people, it's going to be complicated at first because you're coming from, you know, the white page, but you will have a different, totally different project. So this way in Angers was kind of hybrid, because the city changed the way they wanted to do the project, meanwhile, that project. So in this way of working, the design team, it's the previous way of usual way. The design team is in front, ahead, and people, citizens, stakeholders, they just like, you know, behind and not trying to understand, not really happy with, etc. And then when you're working in a different way, the integrated design process, the placemaking, community planning, all those philosophy, the design team is surrounding the stakeholders to be in service of the stakeholders, which is really different. The big insight was the thing with the water. So we had a long phase of 1 year of clarifying the problems we had. So we are now clarifying the shared problems and mixing groups. You realize that, you know, when you're an association for fishing and association for looking at the sky during the night, you don't have the same interest. So you have to be in confidence with others. You have to know each other. So we had done a lot of work, not on the field because it was a big group, it was in the evening, but we had a lot of pictures. People could go when they were not in the workshop, and they had a lot of pictures, not to stay at the sky level, but really go at the eye level. So they participate. So we ask them a lot of things in clarifying. We have about 10 steps, different steps to clarify all the shared problem. So they had kind of a big map of strength, weaknesses, opportunities, which is one of the steps of the place-led development process. And suddenly the city discovered there was so many things going on that river, not connected, not linked. Some of them were known by urban planners, some were not. And some of them were so interesting that they could really be part of the identity of the river. So that was, I would say, that one of the, you know, those big moments in the project when everything changed, because you feel that a new reality just appeared. That was one of those moments. And I would say another moment was that suddenly we were all the time working on riverfront, south one, north one, south one, north one. And suddenly someone say, would you like to come on a boat, all of you? And I will show you the river, how it looks from a boat. And suddenly for a lot of person, we just discovered that the problem is we were going like an urban planner. The riverfront was the end of the south part. And the riverfront here was the end of the north part. And that's it. And the river was just in the middle of it. But the river was something. It was the beginning of everything. So that was, I would say, probably the big point that changed absolutely the view. And when you have that big point, you're just so happy that you have done that clarifying process, quite long, but quite important. So we went out with that, with 50 challenges around the river as a place, a new deep connection to Angers identity, what was not the first ask of the city at the beginning. So that was that. The river should be the place. And there should be a lot of things going on, and that should be celebrated as the identity that was cut by that highway but we have to celebrate it and we have to use it in another way. So that was really nice, because at that point, when you have 5 or 6 workshops done with people, they are really in confidence. It takes that time that people are in confidence, don't know each other. They cannot be like productive on the first workshop. And they were able to say, okay, with all that challenges, we have made them work on what kind of actions they could do, like small term, very important. And after the election, because last year we were having election in France, so a lot of action couldn't get on during the election time. So, and they have that book. All of this was new for them. And probably the first part of the project would have been the same at all if they had worked this way. So for me, it's a big success, just seeing that book. And the politicians look at them and they, okay, now we have the action plan, so let's do it. Start with quick wins. And then after the election, we can challenge the project and go on big things that we have to build now. Another interesting point is designing with emotions. I really like the fact that in a process like this, there is a lot of emotions. We never talk about it, but there's a lot of emotions. Politicians, they are kind of scared of those process at first when they don't know them, because they are afraid, of course, of opposition. They are afraid that the project is stuck. So they're not really comfortable. You can say here, people are not really confident at first. They're not really happy to be there. They just look, not really sure of what they are doing here. And that's funny, because during the process, that was not all the time. In 2016, we had some workshop. 2018 was more dance. And 2019, again, it was dance. And 2020, everything stopped. And look at the emotion that I could draw. It's not scientific. It's really what I felt. And look what happened. Before it started, people were in opposition of the project because a lot of them were not happy the way it was done. And then the more we were working with them, the more it went high. People were really happy, really in confidence, happy to come. They were happy. They say, when's the next workshop? And then suddenly it stopped for 6 months because politicians had to do some decisions. They didn't want to continue. They had some doubt. So then you start again to have an emotions load that you have to work on it. And again, you go like this, and then suddenly you have the COVID, nothing's going on. And at the end of 2020, some associations just went out of the group because it's fragile. You never can say that everybody will be, absolutely on the project. It's something really fragile. You always have to work. It's why org work is so important. If you are interested in that point, there's a lot of books and things about it, and it's very, very interesting, the democracy and emotions. So you can see after, when it was good, people were really happy to work together to present what they have worked on. And then finally, at the end of 2019, the mayor just made a big announcement. He said that if he was elected, he was going to put the main river and all the planning development like the first project of his mandate, which he had done. So this project was supposed to be kind of a €500,000 budget at the beginning, and now it's 35 million euros because he really understood how important it was. So I'm going to accelerate, sorry, just to check the time. Doing with people and not for them, very important. It's quite different. So it's not as easy that when you think that you're doing things well for people. And I would say that when we start the project, the process, we were kind of doing a mediation because people were not really happy. And a lot of people were not happy that the project couldn't be like all pedestrians project. And what is interesting in now, we are climbing that ladder And I would say that now, at the end of 2020 and beginning of 2021, it's probably something between here, but there's a bit, again, of mediation because of the COVID and the 1 year stop. So it's a kind of an in-between. It's something ladder. You can go up and down during a process. So this is a tool. I'm not going to explain it in detail, but it's really interesting. It's coming from the community planning tool, but it can look like a placemaking tool about private-public population. The main difference is about having a part for associations, you can see here. And here it's more about asking yourself, what kind of citizens, like persona, what kind of citizens will use those places and what they are thinking and etc. Kind of an empathy map for all those persona. So that's a really useful map. If you have any questions, I can explain it after, because you're putting influence and power on it. Another interesting thing is that was the first time I was working with associations and not citizens or companies. And at first I said, oh, associations, you have that guy, is the president, but the associations is behind, I don't see it. And I did discover that was really powerful. Why? Because when you have an association here, you have the members beneath. So if this person, kind of an interface person, wants to be in the project, they will go towards the members and bring them in the project in another way. So I just discovered that was kind of really powerful. And usually the people, the citizens or the individual that comes had leadership. So they are really concerned by the project and really wants to do things. So that was the first time. And now I'm working in another project and it's the same effect. I really like it, really. And also we had to work with institutional services because the river had many people that maintaining the greens, the green place, the vegetables and everything. So we had to work with the different services because they never worked together. The services of the department, region, cities, tourism never meet each other. So that's the beginning of the process now inside, like I was saying, inside of those organizations. There's a really, and they are really excited by that because they say, yeah, we should have worked this way before. Same thing with people from tourism. So those workshops are not with citizens and associations, only people working for cities, department, and region. So you're going to see some quick wins. So everything that is in green is already done and done after citizens have worked. So those are not things that were supposed to be done before citizens and association. So they have done some small placemaking on small places, and they have done a lot of things beside the hospitals. The hospitals people couldn't even go to the riverfront. And they have done a lot of things with a school of design there in order that people working in the hospital can go when it's sunny, when they are tired, when people sick wants to see their family, but not going too far from the hospital. That was really a good quick win. And now, you know, you had nothing before. So that's quite exciting. And also some things that are trying at the moment, prototyping, in order to have less dangerous cross-section of the roads that citizens said was really dangerous. So there's a lot of things going on. I didn't show everything. One of the things that was important too is assess. In the method, it's really important that you assess all over the process. We didn't do it at first, probably because we were also ourselves with emotions of being afraid that something didn't work. So maybe we didn't really want to know if it was well done. But 6 months ago, we had done a really deep assessment with the clients, with the associations, with us. And we have done something that we are really proud of. I cannot show at the moment, but with all those different topics that we have evaluated and tried to find some corrected action. The celebration was really nice. So now you see the esplanade that was not very funny. So that was the kind of celebration they have done, not last summer, but it was the summer 2019 to celebrate middle part of the process. And then 2020, everything had stopped. So at the moment, this is not done yet. That's funny. Was done by citizens, an association. There's an association of people living here, kind of a village. They had proposed things. They were really aggressive at first. They were not happy. They asked for that for many times. And then now they start to work this way. And even people say, hey, maybe we should get rid of car at that place too. So that's nice to see that coming from citizens. Then you can have something that is, of course, accepted because they were part of it. During the nighttime, they have some shows. So they let it the way it is now. So they have different events. And we had worked with the people from tourism and Art City to have kind of event program calendar. So you always have something that's going on there. So it's kind of really polyvalent, multi-skills. So you have some pictures of how it is. It's not finished, you know, like place like that. There's nothing for the moment. It's not done yet. So there's a lot of boats that were already there, but there's going to be a big effort in the next 2 years to work on tourism on the river, ecotourism on the river, because it's not really developed. This was done by the architects without this, with the citizens asking for having some water. They were not supposed to put water, and citizens were saying that they really want and really happy to have it. And the end of my presentation is remember you that the folded paper you have seen, that means it represents the fact that a problem, when you start to do this, you don't know what you're going to find. And it's never going to be flat. It's always going to be a bit folded because it's not perfect. It's always a working process. But the important thing is you build something nice with it. It's not perfect, but you can build something and it's never ending process. So I would say that probably the best thing that happened to the city of Angers, they just discovered that the placemaking way they were doing at beginning, like Anne said, doing the project and asking to people to come was not the good one. And I would say that here, the place-led development was really something to watch about the water and the identity. That was the most important things that we discovered, that it was not really the riverfront, but the identity. So very exciting to see what's going on in the next 4 years now. That's it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Marika. That was a wonderful, wonderful presentation. And for our deep dive series, it couldn't have been a more excellent start. We can really see from your presentation and storytelling of the project how iterative and layered it has been over the years, and how deep your listening is to really bring out the emotions and the empathy in the project. And we see such quick wins with an overall big strategic picture for the area. So thank you so very much. We do have a handful of questions, and I'll open it up first with Sayla's question. They say, do you happen to encounter resistance to implementing those concepts in France, where the words identity and community are often evoke tensions?
Sorry, just I don't see the questions what they are. I would like to read them. It's easier for me.
If you go into the chat, you can scroll up. I can also copy it as well.
I'm trying to find this chat.
I'll copy and paste it to make it.
Okay, I see it. It's when you share the screen. Okay. So which one you just start with?
It was from Sayla, and it's the most recent copy paste question, wondering about the keywords of identity and community in the French context.
Very nice question. Yeah, that's a problem that we cannot use community. I'm trying now to use it more and more. Sometimes I say human ecosystem instead of community, because if not, we don't have a word for that. So usually I say human ecosystem, and identity we can use it, but we have to explain. You have different words for that, but you're absolutely right. And many times when I say that I'm doing some community planning where you work a lot with the community, I'm just missing so much that word that is so meaningful. So I explain to people, try to use it, because when you talk about neighborhood, it's not the same thing in communities. And thank you, Sela. Yeah, you're absolutely right. From Bulgaria, took part in a 3-day design hackathon about revitalization. Yeah.
The next question we have relates to communication. This is from Silana Panova from Bulgaria, looking to understand a bit more about the communication relating to, I believe, participation and getting involved about the choice of prototyping.
Okay. Well, the more you start, like I said in the middle of the presentation, when you start to show something, any line on a paper as an architect, you have a bias for sure. Because remember what I've shown, you know, like if you put people in front of nothing, it's not easy for them. Because in fact, people don't exactly know what they need. And I should have told that it's that never ask to people what they need. Because in fact, directly, they don't exactly know deeply what they need. We don't know deeply what we need. So the problem is when you put a line on a paper, you help people to be like on vacation intellectually, because it's more easy to say, I like this, I don't like this, than in front of something like nothing, what I really need. So it's why you need really a lot of techniques to help people. Usually you help them, you know, talk about what they are living every day. Okay, tell me this morning where you have been. You know, you have seen those little things with the ropes. So they say where I'm going from my house, from my, you know, leisure time, where I'm going with my bikes and what I'm doing. And then the more they are talking, the more they are discovering that they have needs. And with some techniques, sometimes you have like the big insight of the river that I've talked previously. So the problem is, yeah, of course, if you have a plan and you're really open mind, so then what you can do is saying, okay, I have already done things. I'm going to show you everything that can change. So you can say, for example, this cannot change because, for example, it's mandatory, or if we change something, probably the cities didn't want. And then you show everything that the people will be able to change. So then you're open your mind to the citizens by saying, I'm just open that you change things. And then, you know, with the AutoCAD, you make it disappear, everything that you can change. And it doesn't have to be really big. It can be a small place. And then you say, okay, in that place, get rid of what I've done. But the other place, I cannot. I'm too far. So if you are in that situation, try to stay, we said a sandbox. Then you say everything that is outside of the sandbox, we can touch it. Everything that is inside the sandbox, we can play with it. And on the border, let's see. Okay, so then if you have those 3 parts, then people are comfortable with the fact that you have the sandbox that you can play in. So you can indicate then that you have a sandbox. Is it okay for you, Silvana? Siliana?
Yes, thank you very much, Marika. Yes,
Yeah.
it was
Okay,
very useful for me. Thank you very much for it.
Okay, great.
Sure. And we have another question from Giles Semper from Go Southampton. He's wondering, were the stakeholders selected or did they volunteer?
Well, that's one of the part of the kind of not problem, but at first the leader manager said, we are going to ask to all the associations that have a link with the riverfront. So it was really open. So they were volunteer, and we asked them at the end of 2019, we asked them individually who wants to continue by having only information, co-design, co-management. So we ask them on the ladder, you know, of participation, where do you want to be for the next years? That was very interesting. Some of them just say information. Some of them say co-design. Some of them say co-management. So that was very interesting. So I would say that the association were voluntary. For the citizens, the city didn't want, because they're kind of being afraid that the previous, they had something like a participative things that were done 10 years ago, but was not well facilitated. And usually they say, okay, what do you want? And then people say, oh, with this, and this. And then suddenly you have nothing, like a mess. So they were kind of afraid. So they didn't want to have all the citizens. And I would say that now in the next step, they are really open to have more citizens. They need to have more citizens because the identity is for every people from Angers. But you have to work in a different way. Usually when we're working with every citizen that want to come, we can work on digital, and also physical. But then you have to back big room. But with digital now, it's really easy to have everybody you want. It's really important to open to everybody. And the big mistake that a lot of cities are doing is having just some group. They say, oh, this is a citizens committee. Yeah, and who are they representing except themselves? Yeah, but they are citizens. No, they are citizens not elected. It's dangerous. And if they are talking for themselves, who are they representing except of themselves? So for me, never do that, because it's something that people don't feel. If you talk to someone in the street, they say, oh, have you seen what the citizens group have done for you? Who? A citizens group? Who are they? I didn't elect them. And did they ask me what I wanted? So don't do that. That's a bad idea. Better do nothing than this. If you really want to work with people, you open to everybody. And then you can have group on thema. You can say, okay, now we would like to work on the place of kids, or the place of elder people, the place of women during the evening. They don't like evening time. So we could work with women on that subject. You're never going to have 2,000 people because people have a lot of things to do in the evening. But the people you will have, like we say in open space technology, techniques, the people that will come, they are the good people because they come voluntary. And that's always more exciting than have a group that is close. But like I said, I really, really like the experience of working with associations, really like, and I'm doing it at the moment. And I would say that's probably one of the most creative way, having a lot of inputs, because associations, they are a community, they are a collective organization. So they like that, because if you don't like that, you don't go in an association. So I think it's really exciting to work with them.
I think Miretta has a great question, and maybe she can ask it herself, so that we see a little bit more faces in the discussion.
Sure.
Thank
you. Thank you, Marika, for the really wonderful presentation. I really enjoyed it. My question was about the funding for the micro interventions, particularly for example, the benches that were placed outside the hospital. Was the funding secured prior to starting the participatory process, or kind of was gathered throughout the process?
Okay, so that's funny, because that first quick wins they have done, at that time, at the same time, they have a participative budget for different projects in the city. And they were kind of all the time being disappointed because it was all the same time, always the same people ask for it, not really doing something for the common. So they decided to put that money on that thing to try it. And they decided to doing well. So, they have worked with, like citizens and a professional building it in order that it was really good for a long time, sustainable. They opened 6 months ago a competition. That was the first time. And they said, well, after this experience, maybe we can have other experience with citizens. And I know it was complicated with the COVID, but I know that they had a lots of answers, more than they used to have. So I guess that it's something that's coming on. It's a really deep working process for politicians and for citizens. I always say politicians have to go down, citizens have to go up in order that they reach each other. And sometimes you have citizens and associations that say, oh, politicians should not go in the workshop. I say, why? They are citizens, okay? If you have some rules, they should come because they can hear directly what's going on. So there's work to do both sides. In order to, be at the same level, you have to work both sides. So sometimes I said, okay, it's not a battle. We're going to try to do something together, and everybody has to change their posture to work together, especially in France.
If I may add, I think it's a really good question, because I think we all have a lot of experiences of being in a participation process like this, where people come up with their ideas, and then it takes 9 months or 2 years or 3 years for the funding to be raised to implement the first ones. And by that time, all the energy is gone.
Oh, yeah.
So you really want to build on the energy quickly, right? And that's why I think it's good to really think about how can we have funding on board already when we start asking people for the ideas for quick interventions.
I would say that in that project, the private sector was really not enough around the table. I asked many times, but again, they were afraid. And why should they be there? We are in France. It's public associations and private is besides. And in another project where I'm working at the moment, we put a lot of private companies, and they are now founding. It's where the org is so important from the beginning, because people, again, a company who has money, if they come on a project and everything is done, it's a bias. They're going to be pros or cons. If they come, they ask, what's the project here? We say, we don't know. We are building it together. Then they will put money because it will have a sense. They're going to be a part of the sense. So they will give money for that. So it's more, So always ask to people who have money to come with you at the beginning. And it's not a usual reflex. You say, I'm not going to ask them, like, we are not done yet. No. Help them to come and make them tell about story. They are citizens and where you're living, when you used to live. And suddenly they would understand that they could links a private company and citizens together. And they see the connection that is together.
Make it really happen. Thank you.
I think we have room for one more quick question.
It's really a really small answer. It's because in France, community is about people from cultural countries. And when you say community, is talking about people that stay together from their country and can have problems. So it's kind of negative. It's horrible because we don't have other words. So when you say a community, it's something kind of negative.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I see Christian has a hand up. Christian.
I thought I'd just do it this way. I have a question regarding the regulations, because I have the experience, at least in Germany, which is, of course, in some parts heavily over-regulated, but if you work with waterfronts and participation in waterfronts, that if you try to include citizens there, they come up with really nice ideas, but then you're facing a lot of regulations, and especially with waterfronts. And I was wondering how you were dealing with that, how to deal with expectations, because often they come up with really nice ideas, but then there's a certain regulation which forbids to actually put that in place, like really have an open walk or pathway by the water. And how did you manage to manage expectations there and to deal with regulations?
So there's one good technique called the fridge. You just draw a fridge, whatever you want. And you say to people, every time you have ideas, put it in the fridge. It's not for now. Because now we want to clarify the problem. And the problem, you can see there's a technique that I use. It's some letters, acronym, we say acronyms, you can write it down. It's P for politics, E for economics, S for social, T for technology, E for environmental, L for laws, A for architecture, U for urban issues, P for landscape. Well, in French, it's paysage, so it could be L. And you can add other letters. And you can make questions. What's the issues on those different topics? about this area. And if you have, there's a lot of techniques. Maybe we can do a webinar on that because there's a lot of exciting techniques to clarify. If you look on the CPS, creative problem solving, at the Buffalo University, you might find some of the things. That's the first step of the techniques of the process, is clarifying. So you have a lot of techniques. So every time people comes with ideas, you said, it's nice to have ideas. What's the issues behind your ideas? What's the need behind your ideas that we could resolve later on with maybe other ideas, maybe better one, maybe other more creative. It's normal that people come with ideas. And I always explain them, here is going to be a process in two parts. Half we clarify, half we are going to resolve. And of course, it's more iteration than that. And usually people just like, oh, and then you're at first, and suddenly when they discover the paper that is unfolding, and you start to have some insights, nice insights. They say in America, they say, aha moment, like, aha. And those moments will come, be patient, always happens, always. And those moments, people start to say, yeah, maybe that was not that our problem. Yeah, of course. And then they get their attention to understand, not to resolve now. Resolving is really easy after, because you know what? When people work on clarifying like that, usually after a while they say, that's not really easy to solve all this together. And they start to understand that it's not that easy. And they say, oh, we should do this, 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 and this. They say, how? We have to link all those problems together. And I doing that for 15 years now, that people are really more, maybe too much reasonable after working on clarifying a period, because they understand there's a lot of things, and then you can play with them. We have different techniques after. You have, for example, ingredients. You can have, for example, ingredients that I always use like kitchening. I said, okay, now we're going to have some ingredients of having clarifying our problems. And each ingredient is something we have understand deeply. And now we are going to cook. And you go in the market, you don't use every ingredient. You take a lot of this, a little bit of this, and this. So they cook themselves like a recipe. They are doing, we call it scenarios. And they're really exciting, because when you have open your mind on everything that you should have seen that was not visible, that was invisible, then after you just stop saying that you have ideas, you understand that it's superficial, because you really have to understand deeply. So it's hard when you're just beginners. Sometimes you just feel like, oh, people have ideas. So just open the fridge, put really a fridge, you draw it, and you say, great, super ideas. We just take it in 1 month. Now, for the moment, we just clarify, take the paper, fold it, show it. You're going to unfold the paper first before you do the origami, not at the beginning. Don't know if it helps.
Wonderful.
You have to be really strong the first time you're doing that, because people just want to put their ideas.
Right. I think we don't want to go over time too much. And it's been 7 o'clock. I feel a lot of eagerness in the group to continue this discussion, but it's always good to stop the party at its peak, right? When everybody's still super excited. We're definitely still there. Marika, could you say a bit, what do you expect to happen in the next 4 years? Because in your graph, we could kind of see the energy going from a deep point back to a deep point again. But is it a sad ending, or is it a hopeful ending?
No, because probably there will be different people also will come, because they are going to enlarge the group. But for sure, there's going to be some effort to put. And usually when it's like that, it's better to start with individual connection with all those associations. You have to spend time with each of this association who had problems, and you have to understand deeply, because you might have missed something. You might have missed something that you didn't understand during the process. So that will be the first part. And besides, it's going to be more operational for the next part, because it was a framework plan. Now it's going to be a guide, like a master plan. And also the city is so happy now with the project that they have tourism actors that are in the boat, like I say, in the boat. They have the event and tourism actor, and they want now to work deeply on this famous orgware. That's so funny because now at the city, they're talking about orgware, software, and hardware. I was like, oh, they're using it, like I had to translate it, but they really deeply understand what it means about. So, I mean, one of the good, the big, I would say, big project will be about the orgware. We stopped working just before the COVID about the different type of orgware that could be matched. And they're looking on something that looks like the regional natural park. It's kind of a system that could fit with public, private, and population. So that was the point where we were just before the COVID. So at the moment, there's a big tender to continue for the next 4 years. So of course, we hope that we can continue.
Okay, let's all hope to that. And I think this is also a big invitation for all of us to come and visit Angers when it's possible again. And in the meantime, thank you for allowing us to travel to your project and giving us such deep and wonderful insights on the project. I really agree with Anna. I think we couldn't have had a better start of this deep dive.
Oh, thank you very much. I was just traded as a deep dive. It will take 4 hours. And finally, I hope the storytelling was something that helped you understand what was behind a big project like this. Because in fact, there's so many public space in the riverfront. There are a lot of things that are different. It's really something really specific in the city. So enjoy if you're working on it.
Definitely. Anna, when is our next deep dive?
Yes, thank you.
For everybody to pencil down in their calendars.
So we have our next deep dive number 2, Wednesday, April 7th, again at 6 o'clock Central European time and ending at 7:15. So we will release the next topic in due time. That'll be a nice surprise for everybody. And in the meantime, if anybody would like to get in touch with me about joining the Place-Led Development Working Group or joining in on the deep dive sessions to present your own Place-Led Development case, I'm just putting my email here. You were certainly more than welcome to reach out to me. And
invite all your friends, because we hope to grow the network of place-led development. I think this is an important topic for a lot of people to join throughout Europe. So we hope to grow the network attending these deep dive series in the next months.
Yes, absolutely. And we'll be posting the recording up on our Place-Led Development Working Group page on our website, so you guys can come back to watch this. And we have a couple follow-up questions that I'll ask Marika once we conclude about some resources for the group to tap into based on your excellent presentation.
You can email me if you want, no problem.
Super. Well, thank you very much, everybody. And we look forward to seeing you again very soon. And please keep in mind that April 7th moment.
And thank you, Clémentine, for your introduction as well. Thank you, Marika, for this wonderful, wonderful session we had.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
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 Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.